Okay, this is the fun part, right? Wireless attacks. I know, I'm showing my colors, aren't I? So how can you attack a wireless network? Now the thing is that wireless is it's just not as secure. You are sending your corporate information outside. The thing is are you encrypting it? Can they crack the encryption? Or what other kinds of methods could somebody use to do some damage to you? The 2.4, I shouldn't say that. The 802.11, anything that's in 802.11, which includes 2.4 and 5 gigahertz and whatever else is coming down the road, is non-regulated. That means that the government is not going to get involved with problems that happen there. For instance, this is illegal to do. It's actually illegal to take off the shroud in a microwave. There's a shroud that protects everything. And there's a device that, of course, generates all this radio signal. And that radio signal is 2.4, 2.5 frequency. So the frequency that we're using to cook food in a microwave is the same frequency we use to send data. It's just at a much higher level. And so if you actually took the shroud off that thing, which is illegal because it'll cook you, right? It'll cook your heart and cook your brain. If you took that off and then powered it on, then it would blow out the networks. As a matter of fact, I've never done it, but apparently if you take that out and then you focus it into a certain direction, you can shoot it at an antenna that's a 2.4 antenna, and it'll blow the antenna out. It'll be too much information for it to receive and just kill the antenna. And so there's lots of different things you can do with 2.4, and most of them are illegal. One of the things that I found interesting is you can actually send a package to somebody. So if you got yourself a Raspberry Pi and you programmed it to just blow information out on every 2.4 channel that there is and 5 gig channel that there is, and you put that on a battery and send it through the mail. It's illegal to send things that are on and working through the mail. But if you did that and you got it onto somebody's network, it would just start taking down the wireless network because all this signal is just going everywhere and it doesn't know what to do with it. And so why do I tell you all that? Well, just to show you that on a wired network, you got to clamp into that cable. You got to connect to it. You have to do something in order to cause some kind of disruption. With wireless, you can do a lot of damage and not even be around when it happens. So the first thing they talk about is a rogue access point. And basically what happens is they just look at your network, they see what the name is, they hack the password, and then they set up their own access point with the idea that people are going to attach to it. So an attacker or an employee with access to a wired network installs a wireless AP on a free port. And so I actually do that. So in some of our classes, right, I'm like, okay, well, you need internet access, but you also need to set this other stuff up, and I'll set up a wireless access point, plug it into the network. And that in effect is creating a rogue access point. It's not one that EAC really wants around. They have their own access points, right? So an attacker near the valid wireless AP installs an AP with the same or similar name as I described, and then configure it to prompt for credentials. And that allows the attacker to steal credentials. So I tell people all the time, don't be doing like check your bank account stuff on vacation in your hotel room, right? You go to the hotel and they say, oh, here's, our password for the Wi-Fi. But you don't know if a person next door plugged in an access point and plugged it into the network and then just set it up with the same stuff, all so that you'll hit theirs and then type in your security credentials so that they can get that information. That's predominantly what a rogue access point is used for. But it can also be an attacker configures a wireless AP in a public location and then monitors people's traffic. Captures sensitive information, usernames and passwords. So to mitigate that, you got to actually monitor radio signals to see who's out there. Put APs in separate VLANs so that if somebody's tying in, they'll be stuck on that VLAN. And then when you find an unauthorized AP, unplug the Ethernet cable that that's connected to. Go and you have to do your research to find out. Data emanation, which is really that signal extending beyond where it should be, which is what I was describing before. There's something called driving. Ward driving is taken from the term ward dialing. So back in the 80s, people would just try phone numbers so they could dial into systems and hack them. So ward driving means that you just drive around and you find a wireless network and then you hack into it. Now, some people just do that for fun because it's an accomplishment to do it, but some of the worst people are doing this kind of thing. So if you're doing something super illegal, then they'll drive over and connect to your Wi-Fi, because then everything that they're doing that's illegal looks like it came from your network. And if you're in my 103 class, you've heard me tell the story, so I'll make it short. I actually knew a student that told me that the FBI showed up at his apartment and took all of his equipment away because they thought he was into child pornography. And of course, they asked him a bunch of questions, and so they kind of knew, well, this is not our guy. But they were like, well, we still have to take all your equipment and check it out. And then the person told him, the FBI agent said, you have to make sure your wireless network is more secure, because somebody got on your network, did all this bad stuff, and if they really wanted to do some harm, they could have copied that to your computer. And then you would have looked like you did all that bad stuff. And how are you going to say you didn't? Right? And so it's actually really important to secure your wireless. A part of that is war chalking, where they actually mark on the sidewalk what your network is and that it's open and that kind of thing for the next person that wants to come and do that. So if you ever see some chalk out on the sidewalk and it doesn't look like little kids were drawing pictures, then you probably want to spray that down and go check your wireless. All right, now there is a way to actually deal with making your data emanation more controlled. So don't place APs near the outside walls, or if you're going to put them on the outside walls, make sure the signal is being pushed inward. You conduct site surveys to find out if you're covering area that you shouldn't be covering. You can also implement a Faraday cage or a Faraday shield, and that's like a mesh metal. It's made of a ton of different metals, and it obstructs radio frequency. And so yes, some new buildings, especially, if you're the new Apple spaceship building, right, you're going to put Faraday cage in your walls so that no Wi-Fi is leaking outside that building. And we put that coating on windows to be like a sunscreen, but that other places put that coating on the windows to decrease the radio frequency that emits out of it, so it disrupts it and makes it not go as far. And then of course encrypt all your data and then use firewalls on each of your network APs. The Faraday cage goes way back, and radio frequencies can come off of your monitor, and so you can actually, with devices, especially the old cathode ray tube monitors, the big ones, you could actually not even be in the room and shoot a device at that and see what was on the screen. And so Faraday cages were originally, the man Faraday made them, so you can look it up, and they originally put around computer stuff to actually stop radio frequencies from bleeding out. Didn't have anything to do with wireless, but now it does. Packet sniffing, that's eavesdropping. That's just plugging in a packet sniffer and watching the wireless transmissions. That's how you actually decrypt and finally get the passphrase, is through packet sniffing. And then of course interference, which I talked about. Somebody can just simply not care about the data you're transmitting, but want to take your network down, and they can just set up things that are emitting 2.4 and cause problems. But you also need to know that electromagnetic interference by motors, heavy machinery, fluorescent lights can all cause problems. And again, other radio signals can cause problems if they're bleeding over. Jamming is what I refer to, so spark jamming, that's the most effective type of Wi-Fi interference. Repeatedly blasts receiving information with high intensity, short duration RF bursts and at a rapid pace. You can make these things. It's illegal to actually have them on certain frequencies. For instance, if you jam emergency frequencies, you're going to be in big trouble. They'll try to find you. But I've seen them sold online. They're probably not too highly regulated. And then that just shoots a signal at it, and it just confuses the equipment. The equipment's like, I don't know what to do here. And random noise jamming produces radio signals, random amplitudes and frequencies. So it's kind of like a spark attack, but it's not as effective. And then random pulse jamming, where you're interfering with the Wi-Fi network is just with pulses of information that, right? Because you're supposed to ask, right? Can I use it now? And instead you're just sending it out there, and that causes everybody to stop. Deauthentication attacks. That's when an attack spoofs your MAC address, as I was telling you about, and disconnects you from the network, and then they're on it. And then because Bluetooth actually uses the same thing, it uses 2.4 frequency, there's lots of different things you can do with that, right? So you can do all the jamming that you did before, but if they're not using encryption, you can eavesdrop. So blue jacking, harmless practice that just sends people business cards that have Bluetooth devices on. Blue snarfing is when the attacker gains unauthorized access to take a look at what's on your phone and so on. And then blue bugging, which actually lets you issue commands and stuff on there. Because remember, you've got that headset, so the headset can actually tell the phone something to do. That's what they're talking about there. It's being able to do that. All right, so disable Bluetooth completely. That's very common. People usually just disable it because they don't. If they're not using it, it burns up a little bit of battery. And then, of course, you can keep Bluetooth on, but just take the discovery mode off, which makes it a little better. But those are the wireless attack facts. And again, I talked about a lot of those. Airports happen. Those attacks happen in airports a lot. And so they monitor that kind of thing. Because in the airport, if you've ever been to one of those places, it'll say, hey, you can have free, but it's going to be slow. Or you can pay a little bit and you'll get fast connection, and then you get to pay for an hour or 4 hours of the day or something like that. And so you're putting in credit card information right there, right? And so they'll set up a fake one and have you type in your credit card number. So in Wi-Fi, there's a ton of different ones that you can perpetrate. So you have to be aware of those.